Well, it's good to be here today. Good to see you all, my friends. Checking my volume. All right, seems like we're good to go. So, we are still working our way through the Bible, and let's look where we're at. We're at Joshua 11 through 15. And now some of you are going, oh, 5 chapters. That's so much. And then again, it's not. It's not a whole lot. 5 chapters really isn't going to take us that long from the standpoint of we're reading through it, a few comments along the way. Maybe we wouldn't have as much time to dive into things deep if we're going to try to get through it in a short time. But you're always welcome to go deeper and to do more with this than I do. I'm trying to just give you the basis to start with. And there's a lot more than we will cover or be able to. So let's Joshua. Oh yeah, I backed up to 10 just to kind of say, hey, where were we at? So if you did not remember, because I thought I knew, but I wanted to go back and check my memory. I don't trust it all the time, and so yeah, Joshua defeated this group of kings that had come up against him. Um, so that's where we were at. So now we'll look at Joshua 11 through 15, and we're going to keep on going. So they're in the land. They're working to conquer the land and the peoples who are there. If you have it, and like I said, I have a great, in my opinion, I did a project 20 years ago. So who knows who's the best map out there today? But I was thinking that we're talking about biblical maps. There's not going to be a lot of new information or new need for maps of historical things. So I found the Moody Bible Atlas to be the best book that had maps in it for different times throughout the history of the Old Testament and New Testament. Sadly, at that time, it was already out of print. And so I'm suggesting something to you that's out of print and was out of print 20 years ago. I know that sounds like a horrible suggestion. However, it's in a box with all of my books from my office and they're stacked up, and I wish I could, well, I wish I had access to it readily. I could go do that. It would take me some time to find the right book, get or box, get the book out, and then scan all those pages to be able to show you. So sorry, I don't have that. It would make some of these easier, but also some of these, it's not going to have every single one of these places on there because some of them, they're just not that significant. The reality is they're all, at this point, really around the region of Judah and Jerusalem. So we're not going very far at this point. We're going a little bit further in a few directions, but we're still not covering a lot. So knowing specifically exactly where some of these places are, I don't think is crucial. Knowing that we're near Jerusalem, I think there's the bigger thing. So let's dive in this morning, this afternoon, whatever time you're joining us. When Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of this, what did he hear of? He heard of the conquering of the other kings. He sent word to Jabab, king of Madon, to the kings of Shimron and Akshaph, that's a nice name, and to the northern kings who were in the mountains, and to Arabah, south of Kinnereth, in the western foothills, and in Naphoth Dor on the west, to the Canaanites in the east and west, to the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites in the hill country, and to the Hivites below Hermon in the region of Mizpah. All right, I'm just going to pause for a second because some of these names should sound familiar. We went through the genealogies leading to Noah, and then the descendants of Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And some of these names were mentioned in there. They should be familiar. So we've got direct connection to some of the kings. And so just wanted to point that out. Or sorry, not kings. The kings of these places that were descendants from Ham, I believe, if my memory is correct. They called out with all, or sorry, they came out, they called out. They came out with all their troops and a large number of horses and chariots, a huge army as numerous as the sands of the seashore. All these kings joined forces and made camp together on the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. I'm going to go look at, oh, no, it's not going to help me. Oh, well. The Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them, because by this time tomorrow I will hand all of them slain over to Israel. You are to hamstring their horses and burn their chariots. So you're not supposed to multiply your army with their army. That's part of what that is getting at there. So they're going to destroy the military might. But notice, again, I'm pointing this out along the way. Joshua hears from God. Doesn't take action, isn't doing anything. God speaks to him. So Joshua and the whole army came up against them suddenly at the waters of Merom and attacked them. And the Lord gave them into the hands of Israel. They defeated them and pursued them all the way to Greater Sidon, to Mizrephoth. Meum, oh, that's a weird name, and to the valley of Mizpah on the east, until no survivors were left. Joshua did to them as the Lord had directed. He hamstrung their horses and he burned their chariots. So, pointing out obedience there. At that time, Joshua turned back and captured Hazor and put its king to the sword. Hazor had been the head of all these kingdoms. Everyone in it they put to the sword. They totally destroyed them, not sparing any one that breathed, and he burned Hazor itself. Joshua took all these royal cities and their kings and put them to the sword. He totally destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. Yet Israel did not burn any of the cities built on their mounds, except Hazor, which Joshua burned. The Israelites carried off for them all the plunder and the livestock of these cities, but all the people they put to the sword until they completely destroyed them, not sparing anyone that breathed, as the Lord commanded his servant Moses. So Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did it. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. So Joshua took the entire land, the hill country, all the Negev, the whole region of Goshen, the western foothills, the Arabah, and the mountains of Israel with their foothills, from Mount Halak, which rises toward Seir, and Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon below Mount Hermon. He captured all the kings and put them to death. Joshua waged war against all these kings for a long time. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. Hey, Taku, good to see you coming in. We're in the middle of Joshua 11, and we've got about 4 or 5 chapters we're going to go through today. So good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here. So we're reading a summary, and it says Joshua waged war against all these kings for a long time. It reads as though this is a summary of a couple of days' activity. It's summarizing all of this action from all of these places all together in one short summary. So Joshua waged war against all these kings for a long time, except for the Hivites living in Gibeon. Not one city made a treaty of peace with Israel, who took them all in battle. For it was the Lord himself who hardened their hearts to wage war against Israel, so that he might destroy them totally, exterminating them without mercy, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Okay, I just want to point out previously when it's saying killed all of them and there's no survivors, killed all of them. I wonder what this word exterminate is here. If that's a different word. So let's go look. Joshua. Joshua 11. And which verse were we at? 20. All right. But they might be destroyed. Might destroy them utterly. Okay. You have English and Hebrew in different word order here, so sometimes you've got to do a little which one is it that they're referring to. But let's look them both up. So haram is to ban, devote, destroy, utterly, completely destroy, dedicated to destruction, exterminate. And then you've got the Hifil, the Hofil, the Kal, and the Hifil, which tell you which kinds of things are there. So, and here, Shamad, and that is to destroy, exterminate, be destroyed, be exterminated, to annihilate, be exterminated, to be destroyed, be devastated, to annihilate, exterminate, to destroy. So, yeah, Hifil and the Nephil. Okay, so there's different words used here and they have different nuances. I've mentioned this before that if you watched any the football in America over the weekend, there were some teams that got annihilated. They forgot to show up to the game. The score reflected it. The winning team annihilated them. We use that language. We describe it that way. And yet, all of us who are in the culture understand that that means that there's not death that took place. It was such a decisive victory that that's how we use language to describe it. So sometimes when it says totally destroyed and might destroy, we don't automatically need to think it means there were no survivors. There is an aspect at which we can understand there were survivors because later on there's prohibitions of intermarrying. If there were survivors when it says they totally killed everyone, how is there the worry of intermarrying? And how do they actually intermarry later if they destroyed everyone? So we need to understand war language and summaries paint the picture of the victory, not necessarily painting the details of every aspect of it. Oh yeah, good example there, Taku. Yeah, it's like look and see. They are the same, and yet there's differences. Look is more of a command, and see would be more. Well, it would have different nuance than that. So I can see that, or you can see for yourself, as opposed to me telling you, look over there. It's right there. It's so yeah. There's a good illustration of that. So yeah, annihilate, exterminate, totally destroy. It's just all language to describe the victory side. So and notice there's the references of obedience that Moses had commanded or got command from God. He was obedient. Now Joshua is being obedient. Uh, so wanted to point that out. Okay, so let's keep going. At that time, Joshua went and destroyed the Anakites from the hill country from Hebron, Dibber, and Anab, from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Now that's a little foreshadowing there because they're not yet two separate entities. Why would they summarize them now as being two if they're not yet two? Interesting thought. But the hill country of Israel, Israel's the northern kingdom, and Judah is the southern kingdom. So it's summarizing all of the land. So Joshua totally destroyed them and their cities. No Anakites were left in Israel's territory. Only in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod did any survive. Now, those names might sound a little bit familiar. I mean, Gaza's an area that we still refer to geographically today. There is the Gaza Strip. So if you're familiar with the geography of the Middle East, you might know where that is. Goth, Goliath is from Goth. So stating here that there's some remnants and some survivors in Goth and Ashdod and Gaza, those will play some roles further on in the future. And readers here should be able to be thinking about, oh yeah, Goliath. That's where Goliath is from. So Joshua took the entire land just as the Lord had directed Moses, and he gave it as an inheritance to Israel according to their tribal divisions. Then the land had rest from war. I've heard uh, some people when they're thinking about Israel and saying that in the future all of the land has to be taken and that it was never fully what it was supposed to be taken. I, I don't know what you do with this statement then. Joshua took the entire land just as the Lord directed Moses, and he gave it as an inheritance to Israel. So if Joshua didn't take the entire land, then I guess this passage is incorrect. Uh, but it's also a summary statement. So I understand you could say he took the entire land, but there could be some tiny pieces here and there that aren't part of it. I'll give you an example. There are lots of Native American tribes and territories within the United States. They have their own land. They are within the boundaries of existing states. In essence, they are part of those states, and yet they're another way they're not. And so you can have some kinds of description of, well, the United States is just 50 states. Well, yes, but there's also some territories, and there's some territories within the 50 states that aren't entirely the same as the United States. So you can describe boundaries and things differently. Yeah, some landline boundaries that are kind of blurred. Yeah, there's definitely that aspect here. So, but if you're going to talk about the United States, we don't draw our map with all of these holes in it for wherever those territories are. We include all of them. We just draw the boundary of the outside. We don't draw all the little holes and make our country look like Swiss cheese with reservations and Indian lands marked off, unless you're intending to show all of those. So, just again, the way we summarize things, we're trying to tell one story. So if we're looking at it later from a different perspective, we might view it differently. For instance, if you say, I have been to all 50 states, or I've been to every country in the EU, you might think that flying into an airport and being in the country and then leaving on the airport in a connecting flight, being there for less than an hour, never going outside the airport, is going to that country. And I'm not going to argue with you, but somebody else might. They're going to say, no, you flew through that country. You didn't go and visit that country. The airport doesn't count. The airport is an anomaly. It's not the country. If it was England, why didn't you get out of the airport and go get some fish and chips and go to Buckingham Palace while you were in London? I mean, you didn't go to England. Just because you flew through Heathrow doesn't mean you went to England. And others will argue, well, he was there for an hour in the sovereign territory, therefore he was there. So there's often different ways to view and look at things than just one way. And so you need to get into the mindset of what was the author's thought process of writing it and what was the intended audience's thought process when they would have heard it. All right, Taku, a friend of mine is like that. I visited a state, but I'm like, all you did was step over the line and that doesn't mean you visited it. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times. Um, I was on safari in Kenya, and we went right up to the border, and there's a little marker on the border of Tanzania, and we stopped our vehicle. We had our lunch there, and we were eating lunch on the border. And so, wow, I could claim that I've been to Tanzania and I've stepped on the territory there. I don't have a stamp on my passport, so I have no proof. I mean, yeah, I could have taken a photo, but photos can be doctored, so there's no proof I've ever been in that country, nor would that country recognize that I had been there. So that's an interesting thought too. So, yeah, you can make arguments about these kinds of things. So I just want to point that out as we're going through here. We're reading this in a time removed from the authorship of it and the audience it was written to. So we have to try to understand the thinking of the people that it was written to and the thinking of when it was taking place. So let's move on so we can try to get into the next chapter. So these are the kings of the land whom the Israelites had defeated and whose territory they took over east of the Jordan from the Arnon Gorge to Mount Hermon, including all the eastern side of the Arabah. So now what was talked about previously was on the west side of the Jordan, and now we're going to talk about on the east side of the Jordan River. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon, he ruled from, wow, that's a name, Aroer, wow, on the rim of Aron Gorge, from the middle of the gorge to the Jabbok River, which is the boundary of the Ammonites. This included half of Gilead. If that name's familiar, you might know the song, There is a Balm in Gilead. Not a particularly recent song, but around Easter time, that's often sung. He also ruled over the eastern Arabah from the Sea of Galilee to the Sea of Arabah, that is, the Dead Sea. Okay, now we know Arabah, it's the Dead Sea. To Beth Jeshimoth, and then southward below the slopes of Pisgah, and the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the last of the Rephaites, who reigned in Ashtoreth and Edrei. He ruled over Mount Hermon. Selikah, all Hermon Selikah. That's got to be a different meaning there. I'm going to look that up. Selikah. All right. Joshua 11. We want 12. And what verse are we in? Verse 5. Selka. What is that? Migration. Okay. Alright, sorry. Didn't mean to. Mount Hermon. Migration, all to. I don't know. Just that sentence is confusing me for some reason. So he ruled over Mount Hermon, Selikah, so it must be another place next to Mount Hermon, all of Bashan, to the border of the people of Geshur and Makkah, and half of Gilead to the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them, and Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land to the Reubenites and the Gadites and half tribe of Manasseh to be their possession. Here is a list of the kings of the land that Joshua and the Israelites conquered on the west of the Jordan, from Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak, which rises toward Seir. Joshua gave their lands as inheritance to the tribes of Israel according to their tribal divisions. The lands included the hill country, the western foothills, the Arabah, the mountain slopes, the wilderness, and the Negev. These are the lands of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These were their kings. It's a little weird why it's 1111111. Huh. I'm just going to go back here and scroll down and see what we have here. Okay, it does. The king of Jerusalem won, the king of Hebron won. Okay. I don't remember that. This is one of the fascinating things to me is as much time as I've spent studying the Bible, reading the Bible, even translating the Bible at times, get surprised by things you just don't recall and you don't remember. So what we have here in chapter 12 is a summation of all. So we had here a summary that what Joshua did up here. Now we have a summary of all that Moses did, and now again all that Joshua did. So we're repeating it. So the king of Jericho won, the king of Ai near Bethel won, the king of Jerusalem won, the king of Hebron won, the king of Jarmuth won, the king of Lachish won, the king of Eglon won, the king of Gezer won, the king of Deber won, the king of Geder won, the king of Hormah won, the king of Arab won, the king of Libnah won, the king of Adullam won, the king of Makkedah won, the king of Bethel won, the king of Tappuah won, the king of Hepher won, the king of Aphek won, the king of Lasharon won, the king of Madon won, the king of Hazor won, the king of Shimron Miron won, the king of Akshaph won, the king of Ta'anak won, the king of Megiddo won, the king of Gedesh won, the king of Jokneam in Carmel won, the king of Dor in Naphath Dor won, the king of Goyim in Gilgal won, the king of Tisra won. 31 kings in all. That's interesting. Not sure why 31 would be significant, and maybe it's not. Maybe this is just a time where the number isn't a symbolic number, it's meant to be a literal number. When Joshua had grown old. Oh, okay. We're jumping way to the end here. Wait a minute. Okay. I was just thinking, did I by chance grab my mug that has Joshua's quoted on it? I do have one, but this one is not it. This is just names for Jesus in there. Just had that thought suddenly. Sorry. I get distracted at times, but my brain wants to make connections. So, okay. So now we're in 13, and I'm not going to add a whole lot. Like I said, that's just a summary. If you want to go look up some of the meaning of those names, that's kind of fun. If we were just doing one chapter, I'd do that. We don't have time. So, when Joshua had grown old, the Lord said to him, "You are now very old, and there are still very large areas of land to be taken over." Okay, so see, here's where I was raising a point earlier, and now there's a different counterpoint. So, okay. So Joshua took the entire land, is what it says up here in 11:23, just as the Lord had directed. Now we're in the beginning of 13, and it says you're very old, and there's still very large areas of land to be taken over. This is the land that remains. All the regions of the Philistines and the Geshurites from the Shihor River of the east of Egypt to the territory of Ekron on the north, all of it counted as Canaanite, though held by the 5 Philistine rulers in Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, the territory of Avites. Avites? On the south, all the land of the Canaanites from Arah of the Sidonians as far as Aphek, and the border of the Amorites, the area of the Byblos. Well, I don't remember ever reading that name. That's interesting. The Byblos, and all Lebanon to the east, from Baal Gad below Mount Hermon to Lebo Hamath. As for all the inhabitants of the mountain regions from Lebanon to Mishrepoth, Meum, that is, all the Sidonites, I myself will drive them out from before Israel. Be sure to allocate this land to Israel for an inheritance, as I have instructed you, and divide it as an inheritance among the 9 tribes and half the tribe of Manasseh. The other half of Manasseh, the Reubenites and the Gadites, had received the inheritance that Moses had given them east of the Jordan, as he, the servant of the Lord, had assigned it to them. It extended from Aurora of the rim of Arnon Gorge and from the town in the middle of the gorge, and included the whole plateau of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the towns of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, out of the border of the Ammonites. It also included Gilead, the territory of the people of Gesher and Maach, all of Mount Hermon, and all of Bashan as far as Selecah, that is, the whole kingdom of Og in Bashan, who had reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei. He was the last of the Rephaites. Moses had defeated them and taken over their land, but the Israelites did not drive out the people of Gesher and Maacah. So they continued to live among the Israelites to this day. Oh, we haven't heard that phrase in a while. Remember, we were getting that earlier, and then so continued to this day when we had phrases earlier. So we haven't had that phrase in a while. We had that at the beginning of Joshua. Now we have that again. So just a continuation of a statement. Obviously, to this day would have been when it was written, not when we're reading it. But to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance, since the food offerings presented to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance as he promised them. So this is a fascinating thing in that the priestly tribes do not have territory. Why not? They're not supposed to be going to war. They're not supposed to be trying to increase their boundaries. Now, it's not that the others are, per se, but they do. They do have men who are prized for battle. They do go to war against the enemies. That's what's been happening, and they're going to go to war later on against one another. Well, to prevent the Levites from doing that, they don't get a possession in the sense of a territory. We'll see they'll get cities that are theirs, and those are holy cities to be scattered throughout. So that there is a remnant's not the right word. What word am I looking for? A representation in each of the territories of the priests of God in every location. So that, I guess, that might be what I was looking for. This is what Moses had given to the tribe of Reuben according to the clans, the territory from Aurora of the rim of the Arnon Gorge, and from the town in the middle of the gorge and the whole plateau past Medeba to Hashbon and all the towns of the plateau, including Dibon, Bamoth Baal, Beth Baal Meon. Okay, so just, I know I tell you to look up names. Baal is a foreign god. Beth is a city of, so you've got some interesting names here that certainly would be interesting to go look up. Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephaath, Kiriathaim, Sibma, Sibma, Zereth, Shahar, on the hill in the valley, Beth Peor, the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Jashimoth, all the towns
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. I knew my earbuds were beeping at me that at some point they were going to quit. So I know it sounds not as good. There's some extra background noise when I use my built-in mic instead of my earbuds. So sorry about that. But figured we would go as long as we could without before I had to make the switch. So not sure where I left off. So I'm going to back up. Oh, let's go. Well, let's just back up. The territory from Aurora on the rim of the Arnon Gorge and from the town in the middle of the gorge and the whole plateau past Medeba to Heshbon and all the towns on the plateau, including Dibon, Bamoth Bal, Beth Bal, Meon, Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephaoth, Kiriathaim, Sibma, Zereth, Shahar on the hill in the valley, Beth Peor, the slopes of Pishgah, and Beth Jeshemoth, all the towns on the plateau in the entire realm of the Sihon king of the Amorites, who ruled at Heshbon. Moses had defeated him and the Midianite chiefs, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, princes allied with Sihon, who lived in the country. In addition to those slain in battle, the Israelites had put to the sword Balaam, son of Beor, who practiced divination. The boundary of the Reubenites was the bank on the Jordan. These towns and their villages were the inheritance of the Reubenites according to their clans. This is what Moses had given to the tribe of Gad according to its clan. So we're getting summary after summary of who has what territory. Why would this be important? Well, because if there's disputes between Gad and Reuben and Manasseh, here's the boundaries. Here's the legal document that tells them who had what possessions. We can go back to the source. We can find the legal document. So why is this some of what many people would think is the most boring stuff in Scripture to read? Because it's illegal. It's legal. It's not the exciting story of the battle we were having earlier. It's the here's the division of who got what. And so yeah, but we'll keep going. It's all valuable in regards to relationship stuff, and some of these names are familiar and some aren't, and that's okay. But let's see what Gad got. So, the territory of Jazer, all the towns of Gilead, and half of the Ammonite country as far as Aroer near Rabbah, and from Heshbon to Ramoth, Mizpah, and Betonim, and from Mahanaim to the territory of Dibber, and in the valley of Beth Haram, Beth Nimrah, Succoth, and Zaphon, with the rest of the realm of Sihon, king of Heshbon, the east side of the Jordan, the territory up to the east of the Sea of Galilee. These towns and their villages are the inheritance of the Gadites according to their clans. I should maybe say something about according to their clans. These territories were divided based on, according to their clan, the size. If you're, I'm just going to throw numbers out because I don't know what they were. I mean, I could go look things up. But let's just say that Gad has 100,000 people and Reuben has 250,000 people. Who needs a larger territory? Reuben. Let's say Judah has 500,000 and Benjamin has 100,000. Who needs a bigger territory? Judah. Okay, so that's what it means according to their clans. Their size was given based on the size of the clan that they were in. This is what Moses had given to the half tribe of Manasseh. That is to half of the families of the descendants of Manasseh according to their clans. Now, I'm not entirely sure How they decided which half of Manasseh was on the east side and which half was on the other side, I don't know. And maybe they're intermixed. Maybe there's not a specific divided up one half the other. The territory extended from Mahanaim and including all of Bashan and the entire realm of Og, king of Bashan, all the settlements of Jair in Bashan, 60 towns, half of Gilead and Ashtaroth and Edria, the royal cities of Og and Bashan. I haven't said anything about that, but the royal cities would have been the cities that where the king resided. So if you have for instance, I'll just jump ahead, and we're in Babylon. There's probably a couple of royal cities, and so in Babylon, the city in the territory of Babylonia, there would have been a palace, and that would have been considered a royal city. And in Sukkah, the southern part, there was also a summer palace, so that would have also been a royal city. So the royal cities would have been the places where the king or kings would reside or have palaces in. So that would be royal cities. This was for the descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, for half of the sons of Machir according to the clan. Oh, okay, so there it is. So the sons of Machir get this side, and so a different son will get the other. Okay, I didn't remember that, so I posed the question. There's the answer. This is the inheritance Moses had given when he was in the plains of Moab, across the Jordan, east of Jericho. But to the tribe of Levi, Moses gave no inheritance. The Lord, the God of Israel, is their inheritance, as he promised them. So a repetition of that statement. Where was that earlier? Oh, yeah. But to the tribe of Levi, he gave no inheritance, since food offerings presented to the Lord, the God of Israel, are their inheritance as he promised. So we have a summary of the whole of what's on the east side, then we have the division of them individually, and in both cases, the Levites get mentioned. Interesting. Now these are the areas the Israelites received as an inheritance in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar, the priest, Joshua, son of Nun, and the heads of the tribal clans of Israel allotted to them. So the previous things were distributed by Moses. Now we have Eleazar the priest and Joshua doing the allotments. Their inheritance were assigned by lot to the 9.5 tribes as the Lord had commanded through Moses. Moses had granted the 2.5 tribes their inheritance east of the Jordan, but had not granted the Levites an inheritance among the rest. For Joseph's descendants had become 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. The Levites received no share of the land, but only towns to live in, with pasture lands for their flocks and herds. So the Israelites divided the land just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Okay, so there's some good information there. Why is Manasseh get a tribe? If we count the 12 sons of Jacob, there's no Manasseh and there's no Ephraim. Well, Joseph ends up with a double inheritance. Therefore, each of his sons gets his own inheritance. So Manasseh gets an inheritance. Ephraim gets an inheritance. That's Joseph's double portion. The Levites, this is continuous, saying they don't get an inheritance among the rest. They don't get a land. They get cities, and those cities also have a pasture land for their flocks and herds. Why would it be important for them to have flocks and herds? Well, they need to offer sacrifices on behalf of the people. And so they need to have flocks and herds to be able to do that. They're not going to solely rely on the Israelites to bring all the offerings. They also bring offerings on behalf of the whole of the people, and on behalf of themselves they bring offerings. So that's an important piece for them to be able to do that. Now the people of Judah approached Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, "You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, at Kadesh Barnea about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land, and I brought him back a report according to my convictions. But my fellow Israelites who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt in fear. I, however, followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. So on that day Moses swore to me, the land on which your feet have walked will be your inheritance, and that your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly." All right, so how many of you remembered that? Now, I know it's a trick question. We haven't read that part yet as we're going through the Bible. But even so, how many of you remember that? I mean, we remember the 12 spies, but do we remember that promise? That's an interesting thing. So he comes to Joshua, who was there at the same time, and Caleb says, "I want to claim that promise." And so Moses made the promise. I want to claim it. So now then, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses. Okay, 45 years. So we can do a little math there. We know that 40 years is what they wandered in the desert before they went into land. So all of the conquering that we read up above, 5 years of battle. We can, and give or take, precision on dates starting and years ending are not what we're looking for. So 5, 6 years, whatever it is. Since the time he said to Moses while Israel moved about in the wilderness. So here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Now give me the hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard then that the Anakites were there, and their cities were large and fortified, but the Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said. Then Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his inheritance. So Hebron has belonged to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, ever since, because he followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. Hebron used to be called Kiriath Arba, after Arba, who was the greatest man among the Anakites. Then the land had rest from war. So Caleb says, "I want that land over there. We haven't conquered it yet. Give it to me. I'm going to go conquer it, and that's going to be my inheritance. I'm good with that. I don't need those portions that are already over here." God promised, Moses promised, I get that piece. I'm ready to go claim it. And he does. And then it says, and it rested from war. So now this might not be a day, 2 days, whatever. We don't have the battle there. We just have the "it was assuredly done" aspect to it. So that's kind of cool. All right. So now we're into 15, and we're still talking about the allotments. Okay, so the allotment for the tribe of Judah, according to its clan, extended down to the territory of Edom, to the desert of Zin, in the extreme south. The southern boundary started from the bay at the southern end of the Dead Sea, crossed south of Scorpion Pass. Oh, I don't remember that name. That's a good name. Scorpion Pass, continued on to Zin, and went over to the south of Kadesh Barnea, where Joshua was. Then it ran past Hezron up to Adar and curved around to Karka. It then passed along to Asmon and joined the Wadi of Egypt, ending at the Mediterranean Sea. This is their southern boundary. The eastern boundary is the Dead Sea as far as the mouth of the Jordan. The northern boundary started from the bay of the sea at the mouth of the Jordan, went up to Beth Haglah, and continued north of Beth Arabah to the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben. That would be interesting to look up. I'm not sure what the stone of Bohan is. I wonder if there's something there. The boundary then went up to Dibber, from the valley of Achor and turned north to Gilgal, which faces the pass of Udamim, south of the gorge. It continued along the waters of Shemesh, and came out at En Rogel. Then it ran up the valley of Ben Hinnom along the southern slope of the Jebusite city, that is, Jerusalem. From there it climbed to the top of the hill west of Hinnom, the Hinnom Valley, at the northern end of the valley of Rephaim. From the hilltop, the boundaries headed toward the spring of the waters of Nephtoah, coming out at the towns of Mount Ephron, and went down toward Baalah, that is Kiriath Jearim. Then it curved westward from Baalah to Mount Seir, ran along the northern slope of Mount Jearim, that is Kesalon, continued down to Beth Shemesh, and crossed to Timnah. It went to the northern slopes of Ekron, turned toward Sikaron, passed along Mount Baalah, and reached Jabneel. The boundary ended at the sea. The western boundary is the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, thanks, Taku, for the lurk. I hope you have a good lunch. So that one we can get. The boundaries, we've got some water boundaries. Those are easy. Those are still there today. We know where those are. Some of these cities, they said we need a map, and it's easy to just go look up a map of the 12 tribes and their lands. So, but like I said, this is written to be a legal document so that if there's any disputes of whose land something was, whose inheritance it was, it's all right there. These are the boundaries around the people of Judah by their clans. In accordance with the Lord's command to him, Joshua gave to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, a portion in Judah, Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Arba was the forefather of Anak. From Hebron, Caleb drove out the three Anakites, Shishia, Ahiman, and Talmiah, the sons of Anak. From there he marched against the people living in Debir, formerly called Kiriath Sefer. And Caleb said, I will give my daughter Aksah in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Sefer. Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter to Aksah to him in marriage. Interesting thing here, which should in some ways in your mind see a foreshadowing, because Saul does this. Saul promises his daughter Michael, to the man who goes and completes a feat. And so David does, and he gets to marry the daughter of Saul. So interesting that maybe this is the first reference to that. We haven't looked through we're jumping in Joshua, so maybe there's something before that I don't recall. But here it is, that there is this is mine, I have my right to give, and I am going to give it to the person who takes it. And I'm going to give my daughter to. So kind of a double win there, if you think of it that way. One day when she came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What can I do for you?" She replied, "Do me a special favor. Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me also springs of water." So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Judah according to their clans. The southernmost towns of the tribe of Judah in the Negev towards the boundaries of Edom were... Okay, I'm going to pause there before I read the cities. This is fascinating. Right here in the middle. So this is one of the reasons, or one of the things that we miss when we're reading through this historical document that's also a legal document in some ways. We miss these little stories that pop in all of a sudden. So we're reading through all the boundaries. We get Caleb who says, "Hey, I'm supposed to have this." Then we have him going about conquering things, and he promises his daughter in marriage to the person who does it. And then one day, when she's there, she, talking with her husband, urges to ask for a field. She gets off her donkey, and her dad asks, "What can I do for you? What can I do for you?" Oh, isn't that so good? And Dad's ready to do anything for her. So she says, "Hey, I've got land, but I want to make sure we've got water for our flocks. We've got water for us. So can you give me a spring of water? Not just the city over there that you gave us. I'd like to have a spring." "Dad, can I do that?" "Sure. I'll give you the upper and the lower spring. We're all good." Excuse me. Sometimes you talk a little bit too much and you get a cough. So anyway, so she asked Dad. Dad gives her inheritance. And then the legal facet continues. But right in the middle, we have this one little curious story. So Axa gets married. Axa asks Dad for an inheritance. And boom. And then we go back to reading about the inheritance of the city. So Kabzeel, Eder, Juger, Kenna, Dimona, Adada, Kadesh, Hazer, Ithnan, Ziph, Telem, Bealoth, Hazer, Hadatah, Hazer, Hadatah, Kirioth, Hezron, that is Hazer, Ammon, Shema, Moladah, Hazer, Gadah, Heshmon, Beth, Pelet, Hazer, Suel, Beersheba. Ooh, there should be a recognizable name, Beersheba. By Zeophia, Baalah, Liam, Ezem, Elphalad, Kissel, Hormah, Ziklah, Madmanah, Sansannah, Lebaoth, Shilhim, Ain, and Rimmon, a total of 29 towns and their villages. Okay. Let's see. We're in 15, are we not? Yeah, we're in 15. I'm sorry. I'm just Hazer is being repeated over and over, so I want to know what Hazar means. Okay, there we go. Hazer. That'll be an easy one to look up. Hazer. Castle. Okay. So a royal city. Okay, so all of these that say Hazer are probably royal cities or they're fortified cities. So it was worth a quick look there. Now we're going to go to the western foothills. So that was in the Negev. So here's the western foothills. Eshtaol, Zorah, Ashna, Zanoah, En Ganim, Tappuah, Enem, Jarmuth, Edolam, Sokoth, Ezekah, Arium, Ediathaim, and Gederah, or Gedi Rothium, 14 towns and their villages. Zenan, Hadashah, Migdal-gad, Dilian, Mizpah, Joktheel, Lashish. You'd think I'd get that one, but I as many times as I say it, I still just, it's a weird looking name. Bozkath, Eglon, Kaban, Lamash, Kitlish, Gederath, Beth Dagon, Naamah, and Makkedah, 16 towns and their villages. Libnah, Ether, Ashah, Iptah, Ashna, Nizib, Keilah, Akzib, and Marashah, 9 towns and their village. Ekron, with its surrounding settlements and villages west of Ekron, all that were in the vicinity of Ashdod, together with their villages. Ashdod, its surrounding settlements and villages, and Gaza, its settlement and villages, as far as the Wadi of Egypt and the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea. In the hill country, Shamir, Jadar, Sokah, Dana, Kiriath, Sana, that is Deber, Ana, Eshtemoa, Anim, Goshen. Goshen, that should be a city that rings, that you've heard, or will hear later. Holon and Gilah, 11 towns and their villages. Arab, Duma, Esha, Janim, Beth, Tapua, Apakah, Hamta, Kiriath Arab, that is Hebron, and Zior, 9 towns and their villages. Maon, Carmel, Ziph, Jutah, Zeriel, Jokdeam, Zanoah, Cain, Gibeah, and Timnah, 10 towns and their villages. Halhul, Beth-Zur, Gedor, Marath, Beth Anath, and El Tekan, 6 towns and their villages. Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, and Reba, 2 towns and their villages. In the wilderness, Beth Arabah, Midian, Sikakah, Nibshah, and the city of Salt, and En-Gedi, 6 towns and their villages. En-Gedi should be another town that maybe you've heard of or will hear later. Judah could not dislodge the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites live there with the people of Judah. Interesting. The Jebusites couldn't be displaced from Jerusalem. So we read at times people still being there, even though we read previously that they were totally wiped out. So how is one true and the other not true? One, well, even both, are summation statements. The Jebusites live there to this day. Well, do they? I don't know. They might have intermarried, and yeah, they're still there. But there's nobody walking around calling themselves Jebusites. Now, again, I'll mention that they would have only been thinking at the time of the writing that it was true. Not talking about, thinking that you're reading this 500 years later, that it would automatically still be true. They're writing about it at the time, and that's what is true. So that's a lot of names, and if I got any wrong, which I'm certain that I've got many wrong, you can use this tool to do the pronunciation here, and it will,
Strong's H 2674. Hatzor.
Okay, so not anything like I pronounced it. But you can hear and look them up. I said Hazor, and there's more nuance to the letter pronunciation than I'm giving it, but that's because I'm not a native Hebrew speaker. So it's kind of like potato and potato and tomato, tomato, those types of things where, or even depending upon dialect and region, you might have difference. So even if this is correct, what we just listened to, there might be different pronunciations among the different tribes. So you have all of that going on. So anyway, we went through 11 through 15. We have the conquering of the land that states that they conquered everything, and then we have the statement that says they missed some, and then we have the here are all of the places that were conquered and who got them. So there's a lot of geography in all of this, and you know what? Let me just do this. Oh, I spelled it wrong. I usually do. I'm typing. There we go. It's a decent one. Yeah, Joshua 13 through 22. So this is right in there. So the 6 states, the empires in 1406 BC. So you have Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Zebulun, Manasseh, Gad. So the two halves of Manasseh. Ephraim, Reuben, Judah, Benjamin, Dan, Simeon, Judah. And so you've got all kinds of things. Now you're going, well, we didn't hear all of these mentioned yet. Yeah, we'll probably be continuing that next week. I'll just click down here. I don't know why I can't do it at the top. You have to go to the bottom to say, oh, let's go to the next chapter. Yeah. The allotment of Joseph began at the Jordan. Yeah, so we're going to read through some more of that. And then Manasseh. Yeah, so we're going to be reading some more genealogy, and you're going, oh, this is the most exciting stuff ever. And 16 through 20. And our map said, yeah, through 22. So we might be there a few more times. But one of the great things I think of this method is we just spent one day. We're not here tomorrow. We've got a week before we come back and do some more. This isn't genealogy. This is geography. But it's legal in nature. So we've got a week before we do more of it. That's okay. This is all good stuff. So we've got 2 more weeks and we're done with Joshua. So we're making some good progress. We'll get through 4 chapters next time, and or 5, and finish it up in 2 weeks. So hey, thanks for being here, and just encourage you to keep hanging in there. Maybe you don't think it's the most exciting today's reading, but maybe you learned something in the middle of it in a few places that's going to be beneficial. And so that's why we look at it, and we look at all of it. So anyway, thanks for being here. Let me just see. Is there somebody